Thank you so much for joining our final session of Cherry Bekaert's New Markets Tax Credit virtual series. My name is Madeline Robbins, and I'm our production manager here at Cherry Bekaert. This virtual series is dedicated to community development, organizations, and companies interested in or currently involved in New Markets Tax Credit. The series has provided a wealth of information and also CPE free of charge. So with that, let's go ahead and touch on the CPE. To receive CPE credit, you must answer at least 3 of the 4 polling questions and attend for the full 15 minutes. Those certificates will be issued via email within 10 days. If you haven't received yours after 10 days, you can email cbhlearning@cbh.com. A recorded version of the webinar will also be available in about a week. It'll be sent via email and posted to our website. Now, if you have any questions during the webinar, type those in the Q&A window that's located down at the bottom of your control panel. A reminder, a short survey will also be available at the conclusion. We value your
Assalamu alaikum.
Alaikum assalam. Can you hear
Alhamdulillah.
there should be something on the screen. Do you see it? Do you hear it rather?
No.
No? I was sharing my screen. Let's see. Oh, okay.
Okay.
Tell me if you hear that.
Your feedback and just hope that you take part.
Got it.
Now it's time to introduce
I
our
hear.
You got
speakers
it?
today.
Okay.
We have
Alhamdulillah.
Laurel,
'Cause I'm at my patient house, so I'm
joining
going to
us
play
today,
this. All right.
Strategic
Okay.
Tax Director
Oh,
at Cherry
I'm
Beckert,
still too
along
loud.
with Jason,
Okay.
Assalamu alaikum.
Strategic Tax Manager at Cherry Beckert. Please take it away.
I don't hear anything.
Excuse me?
I don't hear anything.
Oh, okay, hold on.
Okay.
Let's see, where did it go? Mm, hmm, Okay. Do you hear
Thanks,
it
Mary.
now?
So, and hello,
Yeah,
everyone.
I
I'm
hear.
excited. So many of you have joined virtually
Okay,
today.
that
I
means I
hope
must not go
both Laurel
away
and
from the
myself can
screen.
provide some insights
Let me
that will
hold
help
on.
advance your organizations and your next
Let me
steps in
close my
community
mic.
development. So, here's our agenda for
I
today,
don't.
and I will outline some of the building blocks for becoming a certified CDFI or CDE. And then we will give the mic over to Laurel, who will share a lot of her experiences growing community development organizations, including how to better understand the foundation of your organization and keys to kind of measured and calculated growth for an organization in this community development space. So on to polling question number 1 to get us kicked off here for all of you with CPE. What are you most interested in learning about today? Is it CDE, Community Development Entity certification requirements? Is it that measured growth, reforms to the CDFI certification, or targeting community outcomes, or all of the above? And we'll just give everyone, about 30 more seconds here to answer that question, and we'll dive into the material.
Okay, and we are getting ready to end the poll and share our results.
There we go, all of the above. So everyone is excited as I am to get started today, and hopefully we can provide you some good nuggets to take from this presentation. So as we dive into organizations' next steps in community development, it's really important for us to level set for our conversation today. Community development is a very broad term It can really mean many different things to many different people. Fortune 500 companies tuning in today are going to have a much different view than the local nonprofit who is really working with, getting human resources and social resources to the organization. So, but for our discussion today, we're really going to be focused on organizations with intentional efforts to drive those financial assets to those underserved communities, with added benefits of kind of being accountable to those communities they serve, and how we can best grow those entities to really turn those underserved communities into fully served communities. So that really leads us in nicely to the discussion of the CDFI fund and the CDFI industry as a whole. CDFI is a community development financial institution. The CDFI fund is an arm of the Department of U.S. Treasury, and they manage 10 separate programs authorized by 6 different statutes, and they're tasked with certifying CDFIs. And we hear from lots of different organizations asking if becoming a CDFI is really the right step for them. A lot of people are, hey, they hear a lot of good things about CDFIs. Should we become a CDFI? What's it take to become a CDFI? So just definition purposes, a community development financial institution, they have a primary mission of expanding economic opportunity in low-income communities by providing access to financial products and services for residents and businesses. So CDFIs can be banks, credit unions, loan funds, microloan funds, venture capital providers, and there are over 1,400 CDFIs throughout the United States, and they can be found in all 50 states, including Guam and Puerto Rico. About 42% of those are loan funds of some kind, and then 34% are credit unions. So CDFIs continue to provide those loans and other forms of financial assistance to individuals, small businesses, community organizations, allowing them to access the capital they need to start or expand their businesses, create jobs, and stimulate economic growth. They offer technical assistance also for financial education in communities that are overlooked or underserved by traditional financial institutions. CDFIs are primarily funded through government grants and programs, but private investment is crucial for CDFIs to continue their mission. Private investment from banks is usually one of the key players and can be a key component in growing a CDFI's asset base. Providing capital to the CDFI while helping fulfill larger banks' CRA requirements. More and more banks are also utilizing these relationships as a way to express their commitment in corporate social responsibility. As ESG goals and things like that continue to grow, banks partnering with CDFIs has become very lucrative for both sides. So as a whole, the CDFI industry has nearly $247 billion in total assets, with a net worth of over $34 billion. In summary, CDFIs really have grown to become the backbone of getting financial services to these underserved communities. But that's not really the only way that your organization can, invest in communities and in lending and investing. There's many different avenues for organizations to work and drive those resources to underserved communities beyond becoming a CDFI. For those of you that have been with us from the beginning of the webinar series, you know our affinity for the New Market Tax Credit Program, which is also allocated by the CDFI fund, and we'll discuss what's needed to start and grow a community development entity that wins allocation. But there are also numerous other ways, like I mentioned. Organizations can participate in community lending or investing. There are ever-increasing demand for sustainable and impactful investments, whether from institutional investors or private capital. ESG goals are simply not going away, and community development organizations, whether a CDFI or not, will continue to play key roles in deploying that capital. So on to the CDFI requirements. So if you are interested in becoming a CDFI, what does that take? In order to become a certified CDFI, there are a number of requirements that need to be met. In order to be eligible to apply, an entity must be a legal entity, have a primary mission of promoting community development, financing entity. You must provide some education or developmental services, primarily serve one or more target markets, maintain accountability to those target markets, and you are a non-governmental entity. So for the target market criteria, a CDFI must direct at least 60% of both the number and dollar volume of its financial products to its target markets. You either need to serve investments areas or targeted populations. An investment area would need to meet one of the economic distress criteria, so greater than 20% poverty rate, median family income at 80% or less, of the area median family income, or unemployment at 1.5 the national average. You can also serve targeted populations, which can either be the low income population as a whole or specifically identified populations, African American, Hispanic, or Indigenous American. So one of those requirements, developmental services, as I mentioned, a CDFI must provide some educational or development services, things such as credit counseling, financial education, real estate technical assistance. The key here is that the CDFIs are very proud to say that they are providing more than just the needed credit. They provide the coaching, the expertise to help people thrive. So if you're considering becoming a CDFI, this will be a key consideration. Are you already offering some of those services in the community? That's great. Or is there somewhere your organization needs to build internal capacity to offer said services? Now, as with most things in our world today, there are changes on the horizon. And the next slide, we're talking about reforms to the CDFI certification. And the CDFI fund is revising the certification process with the goal of strengthening accountability and transparency throughout the industry, as well as streamlining the application process. So the stated policy objectives of the CDFI fund are to protect the CDFI brand, support growth and reach of their CDFIs, foster diversity of CDFI types, activities, and geographies, minimize the burden on CDFIs while improving data quality and collection methods, proving out the impact in the communities, and promote efficiency for CDFI fund staff. So what updates are being made? There are several updates coming to the primary mission section of the application. So as part of their brand protection goal, the changes in the section are really meant to strengthen the primary mission test. The major change that's coming from the CDFI fund is that now require board-approved strategic plan evidencing community development strategy. So you really will be ineligible for certification without such a plan. So that's one of the major changes. Also in that section, there's going to be so-called bright line questions. These questions were really meant as a test for potential CDFIs, show that their responsible financing practices are in place, which really is a prerequisite for being a CDFI. Things such as, are your loan products, do they allow for an APR over 36%? Things like that. And really the CDFI is trying to get at, do you also consider the borrower's ability to repay? The CDFI fund is serving low-income people, low-income communities, but we aren't just giving that money away. It is still considered a loan, and having policies and procedures in place and having experienced loan professionals on hand is also key to becoming a CDFI. So another change that will take place in the certification is a required minimum of 12 months of financial product or financial services activity prior to the submission of your CDFI certification application. That's going to be a new one, and I think it's a welcomed one. There are also changes to the target market assessment methodologies that I mentioned earlier. The revised application expands opportunities to receive target market credit, which is a welcomed addition, as well as allowing certified CDFIs to meet various thresholds based on a 3-year rolling average. So the proposals allow for a little bit more flexibility. It allows for the use of financial services to meet that target market test that we mentioned earlier. And then the last section, changes to the accountability section, have been designed to increase the emphasis on the use of governing boards to demonstrate that accountability to their underserved target markets. It also allows advisory board options for banks and credit unions, which wasn't there before. So these revisions have been a long time coming. In May 2020, the CDFI fund released proposed changes. Public comments and reviews got us to a new draft of the application last October. And the CDFI fund expects to now open the new certification process in the fall of 2023. For those interested in this process, there is an expected update coming on Monday. The recently established CDFI certification subcommittee will present its official recommendations during the public meeting on Monday, and you can find more information about that at cdfifund.gov. So that was a lot of information, and clearly not an exhaustive list of all the changes. If you're looking to become a certified CDFI, as the new certification comes out in the fall, I would definitely try and get some counsel or some consulting work done prior to that coming out. Lots of changes have come out. Another key note for existing CDFIs is there will be a grace period for you to apply for certification under the new application. So existing CDFIs are going to need to recertify, but they will have a grace period to do that. All right, so on to the next slide. Why get certified? You know, hopefully it's apparent at this point, but it really opens your organization up to a menu of awards available through the CDFI fund, things like the bond guarantee program, which helps capitalize your CDFIs and provide that needed capital to the low-income communities. But further, you get the CDFI brand. And as we've been discussing, it carries a lot of weight. It will be much easier to secure private financing and investments when you are tagged as a CDFI. And then if you are a CDFI, you do have some reporting responsibilities. CDFIs must recertify through the annual certification data collection report, which really tracks financial health of the CDFI, portfolio level information. Reporting is required to show compliance to award agreements and things like that. Dependent on each specific award program, you might have different reporting requirements, but the use of your award, performance, financial statement, audit submissions, and transaction level reports. All right, as I mentioned earlier, so one key on the next slide, one key grant program for anyone that's thinking of becoming a CDFI or emerging CDFI. The new guidance requires that 12 months of financing services or lending prior to applying to become a CDFI. So, however, the CDFI fund does offer a technical assistance grant, which emerging CDFIs can apply for. And to be eligible for the technical assistance grant, emerging CDFIs must demonstrate that they have the ability to become a certified CDFI within 3 years of receiving the grant. So this is really a great first step for new CDFIs, as you need to produce a plan toward becoming a CDFI. And while you do not need to demonstrate a track record of lending for your application, you will outline that plan, building your organization capacity to provide new lending products. Last year, the CDFI fund awarded 218 organizations over 27 million technical assistance awards. And those funds can be used for all sorts of different capacity building projects, consulting, contracting services, salaries, training costs, equipment and supplies. Really a great way to help get a new CDFI started. So certified CDFIs can also apply for this, but they can't apply for both financial assistance grants and technical assistance grants. All right, that moves us on to the other designation bestowed by the CDFI fund, which is a community development entity. As defined by the CDFI fund, it's a domestic corporation or partnership as an intermediary vehicle for the provision of loans, investments, or financial counseling in low-income communities. So CDEs may be newly created organizations that are controlled by a for-profit, nonprofit, or even a governmental organization. The primary benefit of being certified is the ability to apply for new market tax credit allocation, to offer that to investors in exchange for equity investments in low-income businesses. The new market program is designed in a way to allow for local knowledge and expertise to decide which businesses then to best invest in. The structure of the NMTC program was covered extensively in our previous webinars, so if you missed those, I would highly recommend going back and watching those segments. But of note here is that you do not have to be a CDFI in order to be a CDE, while CDFIs are automatically treated as qualified CDEs and can apply for new market allocation. In order to be an eligible certified CDE, you must be a legal entity, have a primary mission of serving or providing investment capital to those low-income communities or persons, and you must maintain accountability to your residents of low-income communities through representation on any governing board or advisory board. That first portion, the primary mission, is known as the primary mission test. Generally, that includes providing organizational documents that demonstrate the CDE's mission of directly serving or providing investment capital to those low-income communities. Generally, this includes something along the lines of submitting organizational documents or board-approved bylaws showing that mission. The other part of the certification is called the accountability test, which generally requires that an advisory board includes representation of members that represent the low-income communities they serve. The threshold requirement here is 20% of the board members need to represent the low-income communities or people they serve, while in practice, we see most CDEs have closer to 100% representation on their advisory board. The NMTC application process, as you will recall, is a very competitive process. In the last allocation round, we announced in 2022, applicants had a 53.8% success rate, which was actually up from 48% in the prior year. Last year, 199 applicants requested nearly $15 billion in allocation authority for the $5 billion in authority that was available. So it's quite a competitive process that relies on CDE's track record, pipeline of projects, and background. So I would also yet again point everyone back to the previous presentation on compliance reporting and applications, where we go through the application process and provide some really wonderful insights on what makes a strong application. I think that gets us on to polling question number 2. Which of the following is not a stated primary objective of the coming CDFI certification reforms? So we'll see if you were paying attention during that, but is it not to A, foster diversity of CDFI types, activities, and geographies, minimize the burden on CDFIs while improving data quality, or protect the CDFI brand, support the growth and reach of CDFIs, or E, limit the number of CDFIs? We'll just give 30 seconds or so here for people to answer that question.
Well, there's usually no right or wrong answer. Here there is, and looks like everybody got a good chunk of that. Limit the number of CDFIs is not the reason for this going. So it looks like everybody answered, and we're now moving along. Jason, thanks for tearing everybody through that. Becoming a CDFI is certainly a big step. And so sometimes when you're thinking about taking that big step, what you really need to do is assess where you are and what your foundation is. So the next step in thinking about, hey, do you want to take this on? Do you want to either, be a CDE or a CDFI, and which way should you go, is really to think about what type of organizational structure you have, what products, services, community are you serving, and where do you feel like the natural growth is for your organization. So thinking about it as a building. If you're going to build a first floor, you have to have a foundation usually. Otherwise, you start to build on, and you find that your structure is not solid and things fall apart. So if you have an organization that's already been raising capital, it's already been providing services into the low-income community, you need to really assess, how is that going for you? What's working well, what's not working, and think about where you want to go and where you think that there's something missing in your community. Because frankly, that's one of the biggest things I see in the community work I've done over the last 20 plus years is you go into a community and you find somebody who has this great idea, and you ask them, have they talked to anybody else in the community about what they're doing? How does this fit with the other programming, the other services offered? And if you're doing something that's being done down the road, is that really even necessary? Or how are you going to distinguish yourself from what's being offered from somebody else? So really taking that as a first step. I had a great piece of advice given to me once, which is, really figure out where you want to go and where are you now. Because if you don't do that, you can't really chart the direct course. If you don't know where you have had success and where you are feeling like there is a need for your services, and then you just chart a course, you may miss a few key milestones along the way. Often what I find is somebody says they want to be serving a community, or they want to do environmentally sustainable outcomes, and that's really important to them, but they haven't been measuring that. They haven't been looking at that. They haven't been really focused on that. So it's wonderful that that's a desire, but you actually have to build that foundation. So really starting with a critical look at your strengths and weaknesses, gathering the right tools. So if you say to yourself, what you really want to do is have a wonderful, robust lending program, but you have nobody who underwrites or understands the ability to repay, as Jason mentioned, borrowers, you're not making grants. So you have to look at whether they have the ability to, based on what they're doing, be able to
I
repay
can't hear
if you make a
anything.
loan. You also have to
Bilal, can you hear anything?
if you say to yourself, you want to be in that environmentally sustainable outcome area, but you don't really understand the metrics and tools of that. You don't understand the technology or other things, then you need to add those resources to your team. That can either be somebody internally to your team, you hire an.
I'm sharing and
I hear it.
it's
I heard it.
okay, alhamdulillah. Okay.
I'm not hearing it now. Mm. I don't hear it.
Each time I come back to the screen to talk, it goes off. I have to go back to the YouTube screen and give time for it to come back on.
Okay.
Okay, so I'm gonna go back now. But I'm gonna have to close my mic because I'm at work. But that's
Okay.
my okay.
Are we streaming?
Yes, we're streaming, and
Okay.
and I have a YouTube on community development.
Okay.
Okay. Okay. Yes, sir. Assalamu alaikum. Assalamu alaikum.
Like myself, I'm not hearing anything, Mark.
Okay, yeah, because I had to come back to the screen. Bilal raised his hand. Okay, Bilal. I guess that was your hand or Bilal's hand.
Now.
Okay, Bilal. Now I'm using just one device. It cuts off. So okay, so let's entertain. Like I said, I can't talk that loud. I apologize. We're live streaming. Okay. Bilal, can you hear me? Okay, his hand went down. Okay.
No, his hand is still
Oh,
up.
his hand is up. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Bilal, assalamu alaikum.
There he is. There he is. Okay, your mic is open, Bilal. Your
No,
volume
his
up.
hand went back down.
No, his hand is still. I'm still seeing it up.
Okay.
But his mic is open.
Yeah, I see
Bilal.
his hand down now
Okay, it's
on my
down.
screen.
Yeah, it's down now.
Okay, so that means I can go back to the computer. I mean the YouTube. Okay, I'm gonna mute my mic.
Brother Michael. No. Let me see. Assalamu alaikum, Michael.
Bilal, assalamu alaikum.
Alaikum assalam. I was thinking that
Wait a minute,
because
I'm
of
sorry. Hold on. Okay, yes, sir. What is it?
because of budget cuts and
Okay, the
and
video is
and
still going.
DEI.
The video is
Yeah.
still going.
Okay.
It's still
Oh,
running.
I can't hear.
You can't hear
I
it?
can't hear it. No. I just
Okay.
want to give some comments.
Well, okay, let me stop the video because I'm sharing it. It's on YouTube showing through from us. Okay. I don't know why it's not sharing. Okay, I shut it down. Okay, go ahead and make your comments.
Yeah, I think because of those and the budget cuts, and this is administration, I'll be looking at, I'm just saying, my focus would be on something that probably will fall under DEI, but not saying that it could be maybe used to get help from a religious community to support food program, clothing program, different things like that. But under this administration, I don't think I doubt it seriously. If with my thoughts about what I would like to do, it wouldn't there wouldn't be no funding for it.
Okay, let me ask this question. Are we really serious about planning and taking the route of doing a blueprint, laying out a plan, doing a radius of what area we're going to operate in, that's throughout the country, and are we serious about the strengths that we have present in the community? As the Imam said, if we're not about helping the good that's already being in the community, then we're not really following the prophet, praise and peace be upon him. There's good. So until we really stretch ourselves to see the strengths that's already in the community, see the weaknesses, see the opportunities, see the threats, and then make a 3-ply form, it could be more, but a plan of action to meet and greet the people that are in the area to assess what the needs are and are those needs being met. If they're already being met, then we don't need to duplicate the process. We need to connect with those that are doing the process, but we have to walk through it. We can emotionally say something or tie ourselves to an idea, but never functionally act on it in a way that it shows that we're on the ground, going through the steps that will help others when they come into the process, and that we're valuing the people. We're not devaluing the people that are around from the point, the focus point would be a community center, or if we don't have a masjid or an Islamic center or another central point, if we work through the interfaith group, then that interfaith group take this process on and really strengthen the community by collaborating and communicating, and then really looking at education from a broader, a more unified effort throughout the community, because we're talking about people in the community being educated in order to make, if we sell to people, then we don't want to just sell to people just because they're there and they have money. Then that means we're on a short circuit. We're not really concerned about the people. The prophet, praise and peace be upon him, established an economic system, or established an ethical system by which economics were done. And so it allows any faith-based group or or to truly be concerned about the people in the community. And then it can go for further years rather than just becoming events. Or we come with, like you say, food bank or clothing resale shop or what have you, and then not really taking into account the other religious groups or the other organizations and what they're doing, then we'll still be reaching in the dark, so to speak. In the next 10 years, we'll still be trying to wonder why we're not really seeing the benefit or the impact of Al Islam, because when we really won't be implementing it fully, as that's my thinking. So, to what you said, it can be inclusive of that. But I say lay out a plan of action and really truly do it. And that's why the
I
imam
never
left
had
the
looked at
9
it,
point. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
but I figure, down, you know, talk consultation on you, talk about it, and those who have the expertise in that arena, I'm willing to, to join them if it's just a telephone, call to the groups and say like the neighborhood, right across what I call right across the track and see if they have something going on. But I just was looking at being practical, just the practicality of it. It's just looking to the faith-based groups
Yeah,
instead
but
of
what I'm saying
instead of
is,
federal government.
where is the layout? Where is where everything stem from as a layout? If okay, let's just say let's go through your process. Let's walk through the process of what you're saying. All right, let's walk through it. So the
You
first
know,
point would be it's in your mind.
wait on it.
How will you get it to the
Yeah,
other people?
yeah, yeah. Okay. You know how to do that,
No,
right?
no, 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 no. This is a process to be set so that anyone can do it. So that's why
Research. We have. I would have to do more. I would have to do research on it. I have to research information then about it.
but I'm laying it out. I'm suggesting, but it doesn't seem like I'm saying the right thing yet to make it click. I'm saying whatever point of interest that we start from, we lay out a blueprint whereby we set a plan of action, a 3-point form of getting to know. The first step would be getting to know who's who and what's what and how is it being done so that we don't waste energy on trying to recreate. So we do that. This is what the young lady was speaking to about data, community data, and knowing what service and products or projects that you're doing, and then it's saying, well, it's steps, but willing to assess first where we are, what the strengths are, what the weaknesses are, what the opportunities are in the community. We've done it from self here on AM 360. We've addressed our
Okay.
own strengths and our own weaknesses and our own opportunities and threats. Then we said family, do a family strength, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats. What's affecting our families? Or what's the strengths about our families? Now, this week is about the community strength, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats. Next week will be about the United States, so to speak, so we can discuss that. But this week is about the community. How are we assessing the community? Whether it's the community of the faith community, our work community, you can put them all together, but having a plan in mind that allows us uh, to gain information. And then after we do the meet and greet of getting to know people, really valuing people in the community, then the next one would be asking questions, seeing what's on their mind, And then the following would be direct actions. What kind of actions can take place? What, from an educational point, from an economical point, from a governance point. So it's operational processes in function. We're at function now. And we're preparing for Hajj so that when next month in Dhul Hijjah, we truly, when ones come back from Hajj, we all are incorporating community life. We're really addressing it, really seeing the strengths, applying the strengths, or increasing the strength of what we've assessed. So we're more action oriented now. Inshallah.
I could see. Well, then it'll be short term, but we don't know how far it'll go after that. You know, because they give out a lot of that Kobani meat during that time.
Yeah, I'm
Contact
talking. Well, that's just dealing with the food, but I mean, feeding the people in more ways than just with the physical food. Is what you're talking about, the meat that the meat that's given out during the but seeing it, what that how to apply it in a spiritual manner, how to apply it in another material manner, such as uh, prison services, uh, educating, seeing how well, it's broader than just the meat of the animal.
Okay. So I can explain it to them, but I was looking at where I can get the resources from. I'm looking from where I can get the resources. That's
I think you're seeing it as you
mind.
having to do it yourself. You don't have to do it by yourself. We're each laying it out so that it'll be a process, easy process. If there's a faith-based community, there, say in your area, right? If there is, if there isn't, then your home would be because that's where you are. You are that. You are like the Mohammed in the area. So you have to lay out a blueprint of how you're going to, and everyone will be doing that throughout the United States. We're asking everyone to do that so that the plan of the action will be more impactful because we truly want to know. So you have the education people across the street from you. But I'm sure there are other in a certain radius. There, like you say, you have residents around you.
I know
But
I know somebody else I can work with. I know somebody I can work with. This preacher, the preacher son, the preacher wife, the preacher's son-in-law father. Let me see, I got that right. Yeah.
mhm.
He
So
comes in and he brings boxes to us, right? So I can connect with him. I can talk with him. That's no problem. And
right.
see how because they got set up. Yeah. I can talk to him and see could it be expanded?
Well,
And
the thing is what we've laid out so far. Education, getting the data, the information. What's the age group in the neighboring area for if it's a mile radius you're gonna do, if it's a 2 mile, whatever you decide. And the plan would be we want to assess the areas. We want to know the strengths that we have in our area. What's the strength of the faith community? What's the strength of the educational community? What's the strength of the city administration? Are they producing the services that everyone needs? So these are things that we're now asking everyone to bring forth an assessment tool so that we can.
I know they. Okay, go ahead.
We're asking right now to all contribute to the assessment tool that we will use in getting to know 3-step forms. Getting to know you, that means you're just meeting and greeting. And then the next form, but we always do it, say come Muharram, we should be able to implement the actual forms, the actual, whether we go through the city to be the ones to send out notices or some form. I'm sure other ideas will come along.
Hey,
Or through the
let's say
neighborhood
this, say this.
associations, or through the church groups, like you said, or
Yeah.
through the masjid and the church group.
It's been on my mind. Yeah, it's
Mhm.
been on my mind to to talk with the minister, his son,
Mhm. Mhm.
and maybe come to well, really truly, I could do it on Thursday. I could do it on Thursday here because my sister she has what we have right here. So I
Okay.
can let her introduce me, and well I know her husband and everything. Have introduced me, and they know of me. So and then go from there. You know.
Okay. Now, and the
And
plan
it's
is,
nice because most of the person in that church is family members, my
mhm.
family members.
Okay.
So
So it's a plan
so I
so
can
that we're all connecting to, so you don't just have piece of the plan. So this
yeah,
is where we are
yeah.
right now. This is why I was trying to show the video to let it be sink in more about how to address community development, how we want that community life. You have to go through getting to know the people, value the people. The prophet valued the people, present peace be upon him. So in doing that, what I'm saying, this form first that we all can use, and you can share it with them to see if they have any suggestions too, then they can broaden that form and it'll function right there in your area. We can benefit
They
from
have
it
a
hearing
farm.
it.
Yeah, they
Mm,
have a farm that I remember that they had a farm that my sister and them had to fill out. Now,
mhm.
but what happened? It was a cut in the program, right? So what the preacher's son did, I mean father did, he
It's a
just
getting to
came
know
and
you
brought us.
form, a getting to know
Yeah,
you, getting to know
from
you form. Okay.
yeah, I get a phone from him. Cause I always be, and he
Yeah.
come, I'm the one who grabs the box and put it inside. So
Yeah. I'm saying,
you
okay,
know, good,
maybe you're
got a
not
good
hearing
phone.
me. I'm saying a getting to know you form, a
Oh, you want
getting
to? Okay, now you got something you want to give to me?
No, that's why we're asking everyone to contribute to what a
Hey,
getting
okay,
to know
good.
you
I get
form,
it.
a getting to know you form will look like. The next one will be assessing what we know educationally, what we know, maybe politics, maybe what we know. We all contribute to what the form will look like. Then we contribute to a plan of action. Uh, but I guess
And I'm telling you, like I say, look, let me tell you what I'm doing.
okay.
I'm trying. If you give me information, I'm trying. I'm looking into what I can do. You know what I'm saying? And then so that's why I come back to you to say, well, you give me a form and I can, get. I know they got forms that my sister and them have to fill out, and I can talk with them.
Yeah.
In fact, I
Okay.
might be just private him one day on while he's doing the delivery. I'll talk to him on the phone. I'll get on the program with my sister and them when they have their program. And they're not really strangers to me. They're
Right.
people. They are
Okay.
people who know me.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay.
Do that. That done.
This because we're about sure. We're about everyone's contribution. This is why I don't want it to be
Yeah.
an I thing. So let me get back because I'm at work and I'm trying to talk low. So I apologize.
Yeah.
Um,
I got you.
okay. So let me go back and try to share this video screen again to complete what they were sharing about community development.
Okay.
You hear me?
Yeah.
Okay, I know you say.
I'm looking at something. Probably about it in 20,
Okay, I'm gonna have to go on mute in order for this to play.
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay.
Not something that's going to produce a benefit to the low income community. We're always thinking about that second step. It's not just a business.
While CDFIs are automatically treated as qualified CDEs and can apply for new market allocation. In order to be an eligible certified CDE, you must be a legal entity, have a primary mission of serving or providing investment capital to those low-income communities or persons, and you must maintain accountability to your residents of low-income communities through representation on any governing board or advisory board. That first portion, the primary mission, is known as the primary mission test. Generally, that includes providing organizational documents that demonstrate the CDE's mission of directly serving or providing investment capital to those low-income communities. Generally, this includes something along the lines of submitting organizational documents or board-approved bylaws showing that mission. The other part of the certification is called the accountability test, which generally requires that an advisory board includes representation of members that represent the low-income communities they serve. The threshold requirement here is 20% of the board members need to represent the low-income communities or people they serve, while in practice, we see most CDEs have closer to 100% representation on their advisory board. The NMTC application process, as you will recall, is a very competitive process. In the last allocation round, we announced in 2022, applicants had a 53.8% success rate, which was actually up from 48% in the prior year. Last year, 199 applicants requested nearly $15 billion in allocation authority for the $5 billion in authority that was available. So it's quite a competitive process that relies on CDE's track record, pipeline of projects, and background. So I would also yet again point everyone back to the previous presentation on compliance reporting and applications, where we go through the application process and provide some really wonderful insights on what makes a strong application. I think that gets us on to polling question number 2. Which of the following is not a stated primary objective of the coming CDFI certification reforms? So we'll see if you were paying attention during that, but is it not to A, foster diversity of CDFI types, activities, and geographies, minimize the burden on CDFIs while improving data quality, or protect the CDFI brand, support the growth and reach of CDFIs, or E, limit the number of CDFIs? We'll just give 30 seconds or so here for people to answer that question.
Well, there's usually no right or wrong answer. Here there is, and looks like everybody got a chunk of that. Limit the number of CDFIs is not the reason for this going. So it looks like everybody answered, and we're now moving along. Jason, thanks for sharing everybody through that. Becoming a CDFI is certainly a big step, and so sometimes when you're thinking about taking that big step, what you really need to do is assess where you are and what your foundation is. So the next step in thinking about, hey, do you want to take this on? Do you want to either, be a CDE or a CDFI, and which way should you go, is really to think about what type of organizational structure you have, what products, services, community are you serving? And where do you feel like the natural growth is for your organization? So thinking about it as a building. If you're going to build a first floor, you have to have a foundation usually. Otherwise, you start to build on, and you find that your structure is not solid and things fall apart. So if you have an organization that's already been raising capital, it's already been providing services into the low-income community, you need to really assess, how is that going for you? What's working well, what's not working, and think about where you want to go and where you think that there's something missing in your community. Because frankly, that's one of the biggest things I see in the community work I've done over the last 20 plus years is you go into a community and you find somebody who has this great idea and you ask them, have they talked to anybody else in the community about what they're doing? How does this fit with the other programming, the other services offered? And if you're doing something that's being done down the road, is that really even necessary? Or how are you going to distinguish yourself from what's being offered from somebody else? So really taking that as a first step. I had a great piece of advice given to me once, which is, really figure out where you want to go and where are you now? Because if you don't do that, you can't really chart the direct course. If you don't know where you have had success and where you are feeling like there is a need for your services, and then you just chart a course, you may miss a few key milestones along the way. Often what I find is somebody says they want to be serving a community or they want to do environmentally sustainable outcomes, and that's really important to them, but they haven't been measuring that. They haven't been looking at that. They haven't been really focused on that. So it's wonderful that that's a desire, but you actually have to build that foundation. So really starting with a critical look at your strengths and weaknesses, gathering the right tools. So if you say to yourself, what you really want to do is have a wonderful, robust lending program, but you have nobody who underwrites or understands the ability to repay, as Jason mentioned, borrowers, you're not making grants. So you have to look at whether they have the ability to, based on what they're doing, be able to repay you if you make a loan. You also have to understand the various industries. If you say to yourself, you want to be in that environmentally sustainable outcome area, but you don't really understand the metrics and tools of that, you don't understand the technology or other things, then you need to add those resources to your team. That can either be somebody internally to your team, you hire an expert, or you hire a consultant, or you get that expertise in some way, but you can't just start making loans on brand new technology without understanding whether that technology works. Have an example from my own background where we had a wonderful new piece of technology, and unfortunately, they couldn't get to the right level that they needed to of quality. Well, that's huge. That's huge. If you can't get to the right level of quality, you can't sell the product. So understanding that technology and understanding whether what somebody says they want to do will work is really important. And then again, if you have aspirational goals that are huge, that's wonderful. I mean, I want to change the world. I want world peace, but can I achieve that tomorrow? Probably not. So thinking about where you are today and what's the next benchmark. If you don't set benchmarks in between your audacious goal and where you are today, then you'll find, and I've seen this with other companies who say they want to do something, but they don't really know what the pieces of that puzzle are. They don't know what the next step or the building blocks are to get to where they are. And you check back in with them after a year and they're no closer to the end goal than they were a year before. Even though they had the best of intentions, they may have even done a plan that said they needed this to happen, but they have no idea about how to make that happen. And so it's really about looking at a year and saying, okay, well, what first quarter, second quarter, third quarter, fourth quarter, what should I hit on each of these things? And not just what do I need to do, but what's that going to cost me? The wonderful part of this is to think about, okay, well, maybe I don't have the funds to do every part of it, but as Jason mentioned, there's a technical assistance grant from the CDFI fund if you want to become a CDFI. There are also other grant programs. There are other interested organizations in the community that may help you with the budgeting. If you're a nonprofit, capital campaigns can help you, or donations. And if you're a for-profit entity, how are you currently existing and making money? And do you have extra from that you can reinvest into yourself to broaden your foundation? I also find that, again, if you don't look at the holistic what you're looking to achieve, you may get a great, you may have a great product and you may make 10 loans, but if you haven't thought about what your service area is, you may find that some of those loans won't really be assistance to you because you didn't think about what really your service area is and where you want to be. So you may have made loans outside of the area that's really going to be your core and key area. If you think about hey, I'm just going to make a lot of great loans to a lot of great people. When you go to really assessing what impacts are you trying to accomplish, you may have a great, smorgasbord, but you may not really have depth in any particular area, which makes it really hard if you want to, as your next stated goal, enter into the New Market Tax Credit Program. So what you wanted to do is become a CDE or a CDFI that then gets an award of new markets, and you have 10 different community outcomes, but you don't measure them, you don't have depth in any of the areas, and you don't have a track record that you can really speak to, then you haven't really set yourself up for a successful application. So what I tell people is, layer those goals. What is your number one priority? You have to have a product, and then you have to have the community outcomes that you're tracking, and those have to be sort of what's your key and top. That doesn't mean if your key area is, again, job creation, that you can't also think about some other aspect of community investment, but you have to have data on that main point so that you're building depth and you have a track record, because that's the key component of a successful application. Is the CDFI fund wants to award people who have had a track record, who've successfully administered a program and produced outcomes with that they have tracked those outcomes, they have data to show, and that they will then be able to tell the CDFI fund, if you give me the new market tax credits, I can do the same thing with that funding. I can now level up, I can have a larger pool of funds to invest, but I already know what I'm going to be looking for, and I have a program already established. A lot of that, again, goes to management capacity and finances. What is your team as far as employees directly on hand, and what is your consultant, or what's your accounting? Who's your lawyer? You have to have that entire team in place in order to successfully move to the next step. Mission, vision, and values are something that I put at the beginning, so that's one of the first things we mentioned, but it's also something to keep thinking through. So when you think about all these things, think about how you are building onto your mission, vision, and values, or redirecting it slightly because of things that have happened. But you have to keep that core framework, because if you stray too far too fast, you'll find that's not a successful way to get allocation from the New Market Tax Credit Program. And it also can be detrimental to you in other ways if you sort of stray too far and you don't really have that foundation under you. We've talked a lot about outcomes. As Jason mentioned, this is our fourth in our 4-part series. So we've had several other presentations, and we won't get into this too much because we've covered the outcomes in other of our series. But I think it's important to remember that we are talking about community engagement and outcomes, because we're not talking about just traditional lending where you just make a loan, and if they can pay you back, you don't care whether they're perhaps going to be involved in a sin business, or they are going to cannabis industry, or they're in a golf course, or there's something else, or some other traditional form of activity, business, but not something that's going to produce a benefit to the low-income community. We're always thinking about that second step. It's not just a business, but what is that business or operation or organization or nonprofit going to be doing that's benefiting the low-income community in some way. So small businesses, mixed-use developments, affordable housing, early childhood education, healthcare, and so many others. There are so many ways. I get asked a lot, what's the best one? What do I have to do? If I'm going to do one thing, just tell me the secret, whisper it in my ear. If I do this, I'm going to win. And the answer is there's so many outcomes. Look at what the CDFI fund has on their application. I think that they really mean what they say when they say you can write a successful application on any of those outcomes, but you have to have a reason, a mission, vision, and values that backs that up. That's why you're doing what you're doing, and it's all aligned. I have seen, there used to be the whisper in the industry, you had to have job creation or you couldn't win. And that's just patently not true. We've seen several entities who've not had job creation as one of their outcomes, and they have one in the new markets. And again, I think it is really about figuring out your place in the world and not look around and see what other people are doing, make sure that it's not something that is, you know, already well covered, especially in a small community. So if you're going to do it within a small service area and there's somebody down the road, probably not doing the same exact thing without coordinating with them would be advisable. But there's a lot of room in this industry, because I always say we have not come up with a solution yet. We have sometimes moved the problem. We have sometimes changed the outcomes for certain communities and people, but we have not come up with the solution for how this is, you know, going to be elimination of poverty and the need for this work. We've talked about this a little bit, but these are just a couple of examples of questions that we start with when we work with people and talk with them about adding a new product. This is what we've done also for our own business, as we have grown from, you know, 5 people to 14 people within our group. What are we really seeing is needed? So I often say, do what you're wonderfully good at and most capable of, but then, you know, where are you missing? Because you're focused on something, where are you missing something? And then how do you fill that missing hole? If somebody is often asking me for something and help with something, and I haven't figured out how to do that, do I hire somebody? Do you hire somebody? How do we make that work? So looking at, what's really needed in the marketplace, what are we really feeling like isn't done? You know, the CDFI fund raised the bar in a couple of questions they added to the application process in a couple of years ago, and they've really made it very clear you have to do underwriting. Some CDEs, I should whisper, we're probably not doing that much. They relied upon others to sort of look at that a little bit more. Back in the early days, it was thought that, you know, the banks and others were really making that whole determination, and, you know, not everybody needed to look at it. And the CDFI fund has been very clear in the application that CDEs need to take that role on. They need to look at the projects that they're funding and see how those things can be done. So that may be something where you find, okay, you know, we were doing a great job on mission outreach, or we were doing a great job on underwriting, but we weren't doing one or the other. And so looking at where you are and where you have those things, you know, what keeps you up at night is often a really good question to ask yourself. And how do you put that off of your plate? How do you hire somebody internally? How do you, you know, make that biggest worry sort of go away so you can get good sleep, because we've got a lot of work to do. Okay, this is another thing that I find really interesting. There are a lot of different types of plans. I used to have somebody who would ask me about the SWOT, and they just, that was what they were used to, and so they wanted to have all of the analysis done that way. Or, oh gosh, how now we've heard of SCORE or SOAR or something else. And if you don't know what these are, please feel free to Google plans, and you'll find that there's always somebody who wants to write a book and tell you about their new great way to plan. I frankly find that it doesn't matter what you call it. You really need to just assess what are the strengths and weaknesses and what are you trying to do. And you can put it in any of the frameworks that really suit you. So looking at multiple frameworks can be helpful, because you can find that some of them may be centered more around negativity. What are the things that are going wrong? And some of them may be centered more around that positivity. What are we trying to achieve? What are our strengths? And you may, as an organization, find that you know, doing a couple of different looks at your organization gives you a more well-rounded view. I feel like it's important to always you know, pick up the stone that you don't want to. What is the thing that you're worried about, you don't know? At least write it down and talk about it, because what you leave under the stone, you know, is going to haunt you later. If you don't assess when you're doing a plan, why have I not gotten this accomplished already? Why am I finding this difficult? What is it that the key piece or element? What is it that I don't know? What is it I don't know that I need to learn or hire somebody to teach us to be able to achieve the next step? So like I said, I don't use one framework or another exclusively when I'm doing plans, but I try to look at the basics, and I didn't try to come up with a new thing. I'm not writing a book. So I didn't try to come up with a new acronym for all of you today. Because I'm AGIB, it would be a pretty bad one, right? But I really think you need to, as we've sort of covered in our previous slides, assess where you are, make a goal of where you want to go, think about how you implement, because I find a lot of people plan, but they don't plan with the steps in mind of where you need to go and benchmarks to sort of measure that success. So I think it's a pretty good summary of where we're going. And then this is a question that I think really is determined based on each organization who is part of that planning process. And I find that it's really important for the leaders to think about where they want to go and what their missions are. But if you never engage the employees in that discussion, then you're probably not going to have as much success as if you go ahead and come up with a plan. That's what you're doing, your leaders, but then also engage others in that journey so that they understand, from the accounting staff to the development staff, to the lenders, to the underwriters, to the leaders, to the people who aren't on the day-to-day lines. Everybody should feel like their job directly relates to that mission, vision, and values. And if they don't know what they're doing there that's furthering that mission, vision, and values, then you've lost them. So everybody should be able to see themselves in your plan. If they can't see themselves in your plan, then your job is just a job and they can get another job. And as we've seen in the marketplace lately, there's a lot of movement and ability for people to just go ahead and say, you know what, the grass is always greener somewhere else. But if you engage people and really make them feel like their job ties to the end results, the goals, and that their voice matters, that they say something and that shows up in the plan, I think that allows people to get more than just, their 8 hours a day from the job. I think that we get a lot of grades as adults that don't come up in A, B, C, D, E, Fs. They come in, you won the grant or you didn't win the grant. You got a client or you didn't get a client. So really, I think the question is, what are we trying to achieve? So if you're trying to get a New Market Tax Credit award, you need to know that the CDFI fund is going to be giving you the grade. And so you need to understand how they're grading. If you're trying to get a technical assistance grant, that's a totally different application and program. What is it that's necessary in that program in order to get that grant? I think this is really something you can take to everywhere, whatever you're doing, and you can change that is who's assigning the grade. So maybe not, we may not be in school anymore, we may not be getting that A or the gold star, but who is assigning whatever your grade is? And if you get the answer of no, how do you change that to a yes next time? It's important to have a growth mindset when you're thinking about growing a company. It's important to remember that starts with yourself. How do I improve? How do I change? How do I modify the plan in order to get from no to yes? So we have talked about that fact that we need to align our vision with both the external from a company, what's going on in your community, from the internal, what's going on with your employees, and then really thinking about alignment with the CDFI fund priorities as well. So assessing growth areas, covering blind spots, and assessing organizational needs that we've talked about already. So that was a lot of information. I'm going to let you guys have a deep breath and pause and think about, how does your organization evaluate community needs? Do you use qualitative data? Do you use quantitative data, both qualitative and quantitative? Do you not know what those are? That should be another one, or not applicable. You don't really worry about that yet. And frankly, that is perfectly acceptable for the answer to be D, not applicable, because sometimes when you're thinking about adding this extra layer, you haven't been thinking about evaluating the community needs in your prior work. You've been thinking about it on a different framework. So pick one of those answers, and there's no right or wrong answer that's necessary for you to get your CPE credit. So if you don't know, just select whichever one. And we can move on to the next slide.
Hey, Laurel, I want to jump in here real quick. We got a couple of questions in the chat.
Great.
And I'll take the first one here as we have a little break here, and then maybe you can help me with the second one. If an organization, the first question was if an organization has received the $125,000 technical assistance support from the CDFI fund, but has not made any loans, are they a CDFI or are they still in the process? And I think that sounds like they're still in the process. I would note that CDFIs that are currently certified can apply for technical assistance support, and they do quite often, and use those funds to finance operations throughout the year. So it sounds to me, if they're not making any loan activity yet, that they're probably an emerging CDFI that's looking to get certified. And then the other question were, have studies been done to prove out the benefits of the new market tax credits to the communities?
So there have been a lot of reports issued by the CDFI fund about the benefits to the communities, and there have been various studies that have been issued. So there are resources on the CDFI fund's website. I urge you to take a look there first, as if you're looking for some data. So this is a great outcome of the polling question. Both qualitative and quantitative data is really a great answer, because there are some things that you can measure, and that's always best. If you can measure your success, then you know whether you are going to where your goal and goal is. If you can't measure, then you're sort of in that blind land. But you also have sometimes where some things are worthwhile and working, but you haven't found the way to measure those with quantitative data yet. So the anecdotal data is sometimes I find sometimes one of those moving things. I often think about the qualitative change of one human. So when I think about early childhood education, to me that is the one child, because each child is precious in my calculation, and so I think about the one child that I'm helping, and so that's not a thing that you can change, and it's easy to follow sometimes the one child. Developing a roadmap. So after the organizational assessment, we've talked about creating that, where do you want to go, and thinking about, how do I know I'm working in the right direction? Am I taking the most direct route? Am I sort of swerving and going sideways? And then how do I reassess that? If I am thinking to myself, I'm headed in one direction, and then I look at the data. So if I've looked at that, if I sort of collect the data and I say to myself, I'm going to make this particular type of loan because I think I'm going to achieve ABC, and then I look at the data and I'm not achieving the results that I expected to achieve, then go back and seek additional guidance and recalculate. But frankly, being able to create those concrete next steps, short-term goals that lead you to that long-term goal, and then assessing yourself along the way are important parts of that roadmap. Best practices, policies, and procedures. Again, this is where I say the CDFI fund has provided us some really good guidance lately that they really want us to have, us as a community who's going to seek new market tax credits. But I would say overall, as organizations, even when you're not seeking new markets, but as organizations who are trying to achieve something, having sort of that idea, what are best practices, what are the policies and procedures we should follow, so that we know we're doing the best work and that we're making the best and most sound investments. What is the minimum? How do you know what you're really trying to achieve? And if you don't know what these standards look like, seeking the guidance of others. So I often will say, if I was going to go run a power plant, I probably wouldn't know what the best practices, policies, and procedures are for that, but I would hope somebody would hand me a manual. If I was going to have to go turn on, open the door of that plant and walk in and run that so that I didn't, cause a catastrophic failure and a shutdown in the community, I'd want to know that there are certain safeguards in place. There are certain benchmarks, I know that this is what's minimally expected of me, and this is what an A+ looks like, and be able to set those up. So if you're walking into a new industry, I wouldn't expect you to start this from scratch. You may have some things to draw upon with your past experience and your existing product lines, but if you're going into a brand new industry, seeking the counsel of others and looking to what other people are doing, and then thinking about how do you bring your expertise from where you have been into the room so that we all are getting better. And that's one of the things I will give us props on in this industry, is that we are pretty collaborative. We do have a working group that shares ideas and best practices. We talk about things. We have several calls where we talk about what should good underwriting practices mean? How do we achieve the CDFI fund's intended goals? And so there's a lot of shared information out there, and I'd suggest you get access to that and try to join in on the conversation. And if you've got some good ideas, share those as well. I often find that when you get partway into thinking through these conversations with people, it becomes clear either to you or to others, there are maybe some missing pieces. Or, hey, maybe we should set up a new entity. Who is the controlling entity? Who's the entity doing what? How do you parse that? Those are all questions that are very specific to each organization. Some people want to do everything in one entity, and that's really a strategic choice. Some people, every time they have a new thought, it's a new entity that's coming about. And frankly, there's no right or wrong answer. There are some best practices as far as limiting liability across the organization, but frankly, at the end of the day, you still need to make this assessment of, who is going to serve what role, and if you don't have all the entities necessary to successfully engage in this new practice, to add on a new line, should you start a new entity? Advisory and governing boards, which Jason mentioned. Do you need an advisory board? Can your governing board serve as an advisory board? Do they meet the low-income community standard, or by virtue of who they are in relation to the organization, can your governing board not count as an advisory board because there aren't enough low-income community representatives on that board? So do you have to have an advisory board? Those are good questions. Often with small organizations, I will say that the governing boards wouldn't qualify as being as serving the low-income community. So you often will need to set up an advisory board. And that's a process that's needed to really be assessed. Who do you want to invite in to your organization to hear what you're doing and to provide you with feedback? They need to be trusted advisors, but they also need to provide that element that you're looking for as far as that look into the community. So if you want somebody to be on your low-income community advisory board, but they really have no expertise or depth or connection to that low-income community, they would just be a member of your board, but they would not be a low-income community representative. And as Jason mentioned already, while you only have to minimally have 20%, because it is an advisory board in nature, we often see people achieving close to 100%, if not, at that 80% mark. So this is sort of starting to wrap up. We're getting to the end of our hour. Here are some potential benchmarks that we have assessed with other organizations along the way. So this is sort of a peek into our process when we go through this. These are not set in stone, so this may not be your list, but we thought it might be helpful for you to see a list of sort of what are some of the benchmarks, what are some of these pieces of the process we put in place. Because if you just go in and try to do a plan, in a day with somebody, it's exhausting and there's missing pieces. So setting up a longer term roadmap for people, thinking about this on a year-long or at least 6-month planning process, going back and iterating along the way, filling in the missing pieces. Here are some of those things that you want to achieve through your planning process. And again, smaller organizations may be able to breeze through this. They may have all the answers. They may have figured it all out. They may know all the answers to this in a much shorter time period. But for those organizations that are already existing and operating, it may take a little while to really assess, hey, do you have the internal capacity needed to add an entirely new program or platform? gosh, by the way, we've been doing this for a while, but we didn't realize we should probably be collecting this data point. I now have to go back and ask all of my borrowers or clients or customers for data that I wasn't collecting previously. Hey, by the way, I really thought ABC employee could do this, but when I realized adding this to their plate, sort of overloads them. How do I restructure what everybody's doing in order to make this successful and something that isn't going to topple the apple cart, but it will be, so additive and engaging. This is another question I get asked. Well, just tell me what I should do. The problem is there's so many different ways. And frankly, this is where I really say, look at your service area. Where are you trying to serve? Are you thinking about just a small, a city? Are you thinking about a region? Are you thinking about a state or a portion of the country? Are you national in service? What do you see is missing? So I found when I was running a CDE that certain things were missing in different communities. So in one community, perhaps the tenants of my my New Market Tax Credit Finance project weren't being able to get those small loans to just fit up their organization, or they needed to be able to build from 5 employees up to that next level, and they couldn't get that that type of funding. But the answer was different in different communities. What's already existing in one community and thriving because some organization has taken that on may be completely lacking in another organizational, in another region. So thinking about where is the gap within the communities you're trying to serve, and frankly, do you marry that with other work? So really thinking about that collaboratively and thinking about that along the lines of who else is in the community. If I find somebody is doing that less than 50,000, but there's a gap between that 50 and the 250, maybe I serve that, but I also partner with people who are doing that less than 50 and that over 250, so that I create an ecosystem and a pipeline so that borrowers can come back through the system and keep growing. This is that's sort of that next add-on is how do I create that pipeline? Do I do it all through my own clients and who I already know? Do I reach out to others in the community? Do I have events where I invite others in to talk to me about what they're seeing that's missing or needed? Do I how else do I do I reach out to partners who are doing this and see how they're doing it? So frankly, the CDFI fund received all these other grant programs and awards. So for a while, I think CDFIs have had a harder time making loans because there were so many grants available. That won't be forever the case. But there are things that change in our environment that then cause us to have to shift and think about where our borrowers in our pipeline are coming from. And then, as the economic times change for everyone, this answer may change. So continuing to ask yourself, where do your key borrowers, clients come from? So again, we're coming to the end of the hour and the end of our presentation. Really happy to have had you all with us through our 4-part series. Thanks for those of you who joined us just for the first time today, and for those of you who have come multiple times to be with us. Thank you for your time and listening to our presentation. We try to do this work with our community partners along the nationally. From project finance, which we had a presentation on, to management of CDEs, the strategic consulting and application writing. We really try to cover the waterfront. And one of the sort of keys to this is that it's an ever-growing process. Raising, deploying, and managing capital is the continuous cycle. No matter what you're sort of doing, is you have to get the money and then you have to get it out into protection. If you're a lender, you have to loan it, grants, you have to go get it, and then you have to manage that process. And then after you've done that all, you have to start it all over again. So it's I really this has been the thing in my head as far as it's not, and there's no end. There's no finish line, and there are lots of benchmarks along the way, which is why I mentioned that there are goals and there need to be benchmarks, because there is no end. to the process. There's no magic finish line that we cross and then we have no more to do. We just start the process over again. And frankly, to me, I think that that's the wonderful part of the work we've done as a community, is that it is this evergreen process where we continue to learn, grow, and get better as we go. As an organization, we're really proud of the help we have provided to the industry and to our clients and our community. Job creation is huge, and investments throughout the country and working with the individual. So for me, it is that quantitative, the numbers, but it is also that one person you feel like you've changed the life of, that sort of sticks with us and lets us keep going. The last polling question for those of you looking for your CPE, hit this and you are done. Would you like to learn more about how we can help you move forward? This is not unnecessary for a yes or a no. You can say maybe if you're not really sure about what you want to do, but do answer the question, and so you can get your CPE credits. And thank you so much for joining Jason and I today on this presentation. We have really enjoyed spending our time with you. And Jason, were there any other questions while I was going that we needed to circle back on?
We got a couple, and we'll try and get them in here just in the 3 minutes. One quick question is, what recommendations do we have for organizations in the small and mid-sized range that are tracking, documenting demographic data and beneficiary data? What kind of recommendations would you give to that entity?
So we have clients that have been involved in this and don't necessarily track data. And so that is the question, is going back and seeing what you can discern from clients that you've already served, and then starting today. So there's no bad time to start. So if you haven't been doing this and you think that this is an industry you want to engage in, no better time than to start now. But there is the ability to go back and look and gather data from past experiences. So that's something that you would probably want to reach out to somebody to get some assistance with, or you can just give a call. If you want to track certain data, you can just call your clients, your borrowers, and try to work that through with them, and gather that data.
That's great. Yeah.
I think that is our very last slide, but I'm so sorry that there's our contact information. Please feel free to call or reach out to Jason or I, send us an email. The information for this presentation, as Maddie already mentioned, will be recorded and will be available to everyone after about a week. I think there's a link in our chats today. If you want to go back to the registration site, that's where the prior presentations already live. And so if you're interested in any of those prior presentations, I am now I've now finally made it as far as my son is concerned. I am a YouTube star since I've done this presentation. Thank you all for your help in making my dreams come true. Just kidding. But yes, we are up on YouTube. We have the presentations there. And thank you so much, all of you, for joining us today. We appreciate your spending your time with us. And look at that, I made it into 11:59. So as people who know me, I can talk. But I'm going to go ahead and stop now. And we will hopefully see you all again in another day.
Okay, everyone. Since I'm the only one here now. Praise be to Allah. Okay. We pray that this video will assist us in our outreach division of strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats. Community-wide Shura Conference is offering this as an avenue to be more effective in our outreach, community development. All right, God's peace be upon you. Inshallah, we'll see you tomorrow morning, tomorrow afternoon, 5 p.m. for the contemplations of Imam Worthy Muhammad Ramadan sessions by Michael Hamid and Imam Kareem Hamid. Okay, thank you so kindly. Assalamu alaikum.